Welcome to the Word on Woodward, presented by Rehmann. Empower your purpose with Rehmann. I'm Daniela Bruce, and I will soon be joined by Art Regner and Carly Johnston. You can catch us right here every Wednesday starting at noon. We've got a lot of great guests for you guys, as usual. Today, we'll be joined by Dan Dickerson to talk about spring training. We'll have our Hall of Fame hockey writer, Kevin Allen, joining us, and MLB Network reporter, John Morosi, is also going to join Art for the headliner. So without further ado, let's bring in Art Regner today. It's a busy day for us, Art. We've got the Word on Woodward, and spring training is starting, so a lot of exciting stuff there. And of course, our Red Wings play the second half of their series with the Chicago Blackhawks tonight at Little Caesars Arena.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited. I mean, I think the Red Wings, are starting to hit their stride a little bit. They're getting used to playing with one another. The guys from the COVID list are all back and have contributed in their own unique ways. So. And Chicago's good. I mean, Chicago's the surprise of the league right now. It's kind of cool. I kind of feel like I'm the director today. I mean, my dream of being a director is finally true. I see the preview screen, the output screen, Ken Cal, guest two, producer. I'm in the corner. It's kind of cool. I wish I could start calling the shots. All right. Camera 7 there, guest 2, Carly, get ready. We're about to go do. All right. I'm really seeing behind the scenes. I'm seeing exactly, and I think this is great, by the way. I'm not criticizing. I just think it's kind of cool to see, because I'm used to seeing me yourself right now, full screen, or you and me or whomever. I get to see the whole production as it comes together. And I'll tell you, I'm very, very impressed. Plus, it's Ash Wednesday. I'm very, very religious. And because I won't be able to go to church today, I guess I'll have to put an ash on my own forehead. Now, you know what? Now you guys just ruined it. Now I'm seeing what I always see.
All right. Well, you can keep us updated on that one, Art. Let's get
I'm really disappointed now.
Right, Chevy. And our first topic of today's Big Three is going to be the fact that spring training starts, Art. Like I said, it's an exciting day. Pitchers and catchers are reporting. Baseball is set to start on time. And the Tigers are going to be a very, very exciting team to watch this season. I want to kick off this topic. Al Avila addressed the media yesterday, and he talked a lot about his young pitching staff and maybe even adding another pitcher to their rotation. Here's why.
We in our meeting today, we did discuss a 6-man rotation, and then really getting through the season and having relievers mixed in. You might see more players being brought up and optioned throughout the season as you need fresh arms. From week to week. So it'll be interesting to see how AJ and Chris Vetters manages the not only the bullpen, but the entire staff. So, but there's going to be some good opportunity there too for guys like Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal. AJ and Chris Vetters are toying with the idea of Norris and Alexander maybe starting more games if necessary. I know Norris would like to be a starter again, and as Alexander. So those guys are going to have real opportunities. We want to make sure that Turnbull continues to improve in his game and continue to reach his full potential. We need Matt Boyd to be the bounce back guy and pitch to his potential. I got to believe that at some point during the season, and I'm not going to predict when, but Matt Manning might get his chance this year also at the major league level. So that's going to be an exciting thing to watch.
Boy, is he right, Art. It will be an exciting thing to watch if Matt Manning does, in fact, make his MLB debut this season. But the list of pitchers that he went through in Tarek Skubal, Casey Mize, and then, of course, the veterans in Spencer Turnbull, Daniel Norris, of course, Matthew Boyd is at the top of that list. And he did confirm the 6-man rotation is a high probability that they're going to need it to get through the baseball season. Let me just ask you this. What storyline are you most excited about heading into spring training?
Well, I'm really interested to see how A.J. Hinch manages, if that makes sense. There's a lot of young teams. I'm going to talk to John Paul Morosi later about this, too. I mean, A.J. Hinch strikes me as a guy that I call him the baptism under fire type of manager, that he is more than willing to put young players in there just to give them a shot. Now, I don't know if that means Torkelson and Green. I'm looking more at the young pitching staff, especially at what Al Avila said yesterday about we have to go to a 6-man rotation. I think Tyler Alexander, I think Daniel Norris are probably going to be in the starting rotation at some point. I mean, they're saying 6 right now, but because nobody stretched their arms out completely last year because of the shortened schedule, because of COVID, I think you're probably going to see at any given point when the season is done, and hopefully we get through all 162 games, I think you're going to see a starting pitching staff that the Tigers had probably 10, 12 guys just because there's probably, and I know they're going to manage it the best they can, there's probably going to be some guys that are going to need to rest their arms for a while and maybe miss a start or two and then come back into the rotation. So I guess that's what I'm looking at, is seeing, as Al Avila said, how Chris Fetter and A.J. Hinch managed that. But I'm also willing to see, I go back to 2006, and this is 2 pitchers, Justin Verlander and Joel Zumaya. The Tigers decided, let's just see what they can do. And they were very, very good. I mean, they led them to, to the World Series that year. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking to see some breakout Tigers. The Tigers are at a point now where they're ascending, and I want to see that ascension, and I want to see which players are the ones that are going to ascend this year, and then next year, and then 2 years from now. This team should be ready to compete.
We will definitely keep you updated on all things spring training right here on the Word on Woodward and leading up to opening day here in Detroit. Now we're going to move on to our second topic of the Big Three and talk about the Detroit Red Wings. Since the last time we were on the Word on Woodward, the Red Wings have gone 1-2 in 3 games. They did pick up a really nice win in Nashville on Saturday. That was a 4-2 win, and then they were back at Little Caesars Arena on Monday. Another really good game against the Chicago Blackhawks, but unfortunately our Red Wings fell 3-2 in overtime. Another game that really did feel like the Red Wings could have won.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping for a shootout eventually. I mean, I kind of, I don't know. I missed the shootout. This game was decided in the last minute or something. Look, the Red Wings are playing well. Don't kid yourself. I mean, since the debacle in Tampa. And, maybe debacle's too strong of a word, but they gave up 4 goals. The game was over before it began. They have gotten stronger 5-on-5. Their puck management has been great. Their penalty kill is starting to come around as usual. And we have to keep bringing it up. And we're not trying to sound negative here, but the only way they're going to start winning games and putting a winning streak together is if they convert a couple of power play goals.
Well, let me put it for you this way, Art. The Chicago Blackhawks are actually second in the league right now in the power play. I'm sorry, third in the league in power play percentage of conversion, and the Red Wings are 30th. So when you see a team like Chicago that is putting together a nice run here for a team that was supposed to be going through a rebuild, that's a big reason why. Their special teams is really good.
Well, their special teams, they have a lot of young rookies, which we're going to get into a little later, that are really coming through for them. And let's be frank here. Alex DeBrincat, who kind of stumbled a little bit, is back to being the Alex DeBrincat that he was a couple of years ago. And Patrick Kane, when it's all said and done, and I know that Carly, I know that you talked to in the morning skate show, Chris Chelios, who I consider the greatest American-born hockey player ever. With apologies to Livonia's own Mike Modano. But with that said, I think when it's all said and done, Patrick Kane is going to be the greatest born American hockey player ever. And he plays for Chicago. He is outstanding. He has not missed a beat from the time he first came into the league to where he is now in his early 30s. So, I mean, that really, really helps. I mean, Chicago is coming together, whereas Detroit is still trying to find itself. But the Red Wings aren't that far. They just need a few of the young players and a few guys to step up and correct that power play, because they're in virtually every game. They've been in virtually every game this year. So I know that's why this power play is a bone of contention. You start popping a couple of those goals and feeling good about yourself, getting some confidence, and lo and behold, you can put a little bit of a win streak together, and a win streak together in a 56 game schedule could actually elevate you into the standings and put you in perhaps playoff contention.
For our third and final topic of today's Big Three, Art, we are going to stay with the Red Wings and talk a little bit about the roster moves that we have seen lately. Let's start with Danny DeKeyser, who is on the taxi squad. He cleared waivers earlier this week and now is able to be on the taxi squad or even play in Grand Rapids if that is the case. And then Giovanni Smith was recently sent to Grand Rapids. Matthias Brome, he's back and forth. To be honest with you, Art, I don't even know which one he's on right now. Is he on the roster? Is he on the taxi squad? And then Evgeny Svechnikov, most recently, the newest member of the taxi squad. So things are getting really interesting here. And what I want to ask you, for fans that may not know exactly what this means, and people say it's a roster move, what does that mean, Art?
Well, what it means is, and I guess the best way to explain it would be Danny DeKeyser. Danny DeKeyser is not healthy enough to play right now for the Red Wings, to be an everyday player. But, sending him to Grand Rapids I don't think would accomplish anything. You want him with the big club, but you don't want him to take a roster spot because he can't play. So you put him down on the taxi squad. He's essentially a Red Wing. He does everything but play the games. When he works, as his health gets back up there, they're going to insert him into the lineup. That's kind of what a roster move is. It creates another spot on the 23-man roster. The 23-man roster, those are the guys that are Detroit Red Wings. Those are guys that are all eligible to play in any given day. The 6 defensemen, the 12 forwards, and then the 2 goaltenders. Now, in Giovanni Smith's case, and this is why this is going to be fascinating now that Grand Rapids is here, is that Giovanni Smith he played okay, but he was in and out of the lineup. So what'll happen is that, and you're going to see this a lot, Giovanni Smith goes to Grand Rapids, so he plays. Grand Rapids has a game tomorrow night in Rockford, then their home opener against Cleveland on Saturday. So he's going to play. He's going to play in all situations. He's going to play hockey. And so and then Giovanni will get going and he plays pretty well. And if he does really well, he's going to be back up in Detroit. Don't kid yourself. But then let's say somebody now that's on the taxi squad that they called up is not playing. The Red Wings are relatively healthy, so he's practicing with him, excluding DeKeyser. Then what may happen is that, boom, he's going to go down to Grand Rapids, whomever that player is, and he's going to play because he needs to play games because he's not playing in Detroit. Then you bring somebody else up. In the case of Matthias Brome, is that, as Jeff Blashill said, all Brome cares about is where he on game day at 5 o'clock. Is he on the active roster or is he on the taxi squad? Because that'll tell him whether he's going to play or not. And then obviously injury is a factor. Maybe Darren Helm was back out there today. Maybe Darren Helm can play. It looks like Tyler Bertuzzi, they had those 2 back-to-back games against Florida. I think maybe we have to look next Tuesday at Nashville. It sounds like, and I'm speculating here, that might be the earliest he can return. He's skating on his own, but he's not skating on his own every day. It kind of goes back and forth. He has not practiced with the Red Wings. So after tonight's game, they've got those back-to-back now Friday and Saturday against Florida, who's a very, very, very good team. The game was moved up. I think Sunday's game was moved to Saturday or whatever, but they're now back-to-back. I don't see Bertuzzi going in there. So, that's something to be a bit concerned about because, I'm sure Tyler has been out longer than they thought. I mean, another roster move is that they were trying to not put him on long-term or put him on injured reserve at all, because then he'd be out like a total of 7 games minimum, or 7 days, minimum. They were trying with the taxi squad, sneaking it in there where we can put him emergency basis. You can call up a player from the taxi squad on an emergency basis if someone is injured. So you think, well, we thought Bertuzzi was ready to go. He's not. Boom, Giovanni, you're in the lineup. Well, right now, because he's been out so long, and I think it's, like I said, it's a little bit slower. So they need Bertuzzi back. That will help the power play. But it looks like Tyler might be, heaven forbid, but about a week away or so.
And we'll keep you updated on all of that as well. Right now, we're going to move on. Art, that does it for the Big Three presented by Chevy. Chevy cares. That is why Chevy Clean dealers are committed to using enhanced vehicle cleaning measures with CDC-approved cleansers before delivering your vehicle after purchase or service. So when you're ready, you can find new roads with confidence. And now we're going to get right into the mailbag delivered to you by Little Caesars. Today, we took a couple of questions just for Art Regner. So we're going to stay with the Red Wings for these two questions. Art, the first one, Alan from West Branch asks, we need a prediction from the great Arturo. It's looked better in the past few games, but we haven't scored a power play goal in 2 weeks. Will tonight be the night the Wings add a power play goal?
Yes.
Wow.
The Wings will score a power play goal tonight. It will be an ugly goal. It will be a goal that may not make it in the highlight reel. It will because it's a goal, but it will not be a standout goal, I believe. And hold on.
Oh, my goodness.
Larkin scores from Zadina and Merrill.
Ooh.
Yes.
Okay.
The great Arturo has spoken.
I like it. I think Zadina and Larkin both need to find the score sheet, so I'm good with that.
Well, as Larry Murphy likes to say, poor Dylan right now, he is squeezing the sap out of his stick. I mean, he's playing a little tight.
Well, according to you, he's going to fix that tonight, and he's going to have a power play goal. So I like that. There you go, Alan from West Branch. You know exactly what's going to happen in today's power play goal. We'll move on to our second and final question of today's mailbag. Bill from Clarkston asks, we're seeing the Wings play some decent defensive hockey right now. Is that part of the Yzer plan, or is this more of how the current roster is built?
Well, certainly, if you have a team that has trouble scoring goals like the Red Wings, you better build a pretty good defensive core because you're not going to score many goals. You're going to play a lot of close games. So certainly, this is the initial part of Steve's rebuild, is certainly to build a strong defensive core and be strong in net. I mean, that's the recipe for all good teams, really. But I mean, when you're rebuilding, you got to shore that up. And, and that's what he did this year with the additions, the Stahl trade, and then, getting Merrill, and Juice. I mean, Juice off the waiver wire. I mean, so they've been able to acquire some talent on the blue line and bring in that, that veteran presence. So I think that's good. I think long term, Steve knows as well as anybody, because he was one of them, you need a couple of elite forward superstars who consistently bring it day in, day out. And I'm not saying that the guys that they have right now, some of their nice high-end players, they bring it day in and day out. Their skill level may not be superstar category, meaning that like Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane's a perfect example. I should be his agent the way I'm talking about him today.
I know, I was just going to say, you hate to go back to Chicago, but they're a perfect example of what you're talking about.
He scores big goals. I mean, he scores every night. He makes something happen every night that affects the score sheet. The Red Wings, unfortunately, and I think because they're pressing, which has a lot to do with it, and scoring a power play goal or two could probably cure this, but they need guys to be consistent, and I think it's kind of a lot to ask maybe Zadina right now, but he's showing signs. Mantha's showing signs. Dylan's showing signs. Fabre's showing signs. I think Bertuzzi's the closest being there because he seems to affect the game on the score sheet every single night, but they need more of that. And then they need really high-end players. I guess the best thing what I'm trying to say is if you're a Red Wing fan, the defensive core, Sider comes in next year and plays really, really well. Tomisto, some of the, our good buddy Max Boltman, had a really good thing about their defensive core. 16 guys that, are kind of in the mix about defensively. Dennis gets his act together in Dennis Chalowski gets his act together in Grand Rapids and becomes that power play specialist, that offensive weapon that we've seen. That needs to start coming together, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But the Iser plan, and I'm not so sure Steve even likes that that moniker. Yeah, I don't think. Trust me, I don't think he does. But with that said, it's like, hey, I might be into myself, but I'm not into myself that much. I'm not going to call it the Iser plan, all right? But I think that he wants to build a complete team. But where the Red Wings are at, and let's be honest, they just cannot score. They're having trouble scoring goals anywhere. 5-on-5 power play, shorthanded, they extra man when you pull the empty net. I mean, they're just having trouble across the board. But the thing is that what Steve needed to do, and he saw it, he went out and he really brought in 3 good veterans, and now you put juice into the mix, 4 veterans on that blue line that have NHL experience. That is the beginning of the plan. You got to stop the bleeding, put a tourniquet on it. The way you put a tourniquet on something, the way you stop the bleeding is tighten up defensively, and that's what Steve did this year.
We've already referenced,
but it's a long way from being over
in this show, so why not reference him again? He always says you build a team from the net out, right? So you get your goaltending, and then you have to secure your blue line. The next thing, hopefully, comes scoring.
Right, but remember, Larry's a little partial to the blue liners. He loves the defenseman.
I wonder why. He has a right to be.
Right, no doubt. That
does it for today's mailbag, delivered to you by Little Caesars. Little Caesars proudly introduces their hot and ready pepperoni cheeser. You get a large pizza topped with classic pepperoni, fresh mozzarella, and a toasted Parmesan and Asiago cheese crust for just $7. Try our no-contact pizza portal or delivery from Little Caesars. We still have interviews coming up with Kevin Allen, a Hockey Hall of Fame writer. And of course, we'll be joined by John Morosi for the headliner. And Dan Dickerson is going to join us to talk some Tigers spring training. But right now, we're going to get into Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meijer. Carly, you have been very busy already today, and it's only 12:30. You and Ken just wrapped up the morning skate show a little bit ago. What was your biggest takeaway from today's morning skate?
Well, it was an optional morning skate, but we did see Evgeny Svechnikov out on the ice. Darren Helm, which is a positive, and just heard from Coach Blashill about how he seems really confident in this team, even though, despite the losses, he's really proud of how they've come out with confidence after being peppered with shots and just really not folding under pressure. So I think that's a positive thing that I took out of morning skate today, and hopefully that confidence will bleed into tonight's game.
Okay, and I see you have gloves on, and I'm going to be down there in probably 2 hours. So does this mean I need to pack all of my winter gear to sit in the rink tonight?
I'm shivering. Like I wore this today as like part of my outfit because I knew I was going to be cold. But I have another coat and a scarf that I took off because I look like a double wide with it on. It looks like I have shoulder pads on. But I am so cold, I cannot feel anything. Like the trackpad on my mouth, like my mouse, isn't even working on my laptop because my fingers are so cold.
Lovely. So, that's great to hear. I hope you have some better news than that for Catching Up with Carly today.
Yes, of course. As we know, you guys are talking about, it's Tigers opening day. I mean, okay, so they're in Lakeland, Florida. I'm sitting here freezing. You know, there's snow outside, but they get to be in beautiful, sunny Florida with the palm trees. But how exciting is that? Baseball is back. Tigers baseball is back. So they posted this video on Twitter. Check it out. Oh, the sweet sounds and sights of baseball. You'll love to hear it. And how amazing. I get to hear the Chicago Blackhawks practicing behind me. So I hear the pucks and the sticks. And then I heard some nice baseball sound, just music to my ears. And then speaking of hockey, we saw a really funny moment when the Red Wings posted that they mic'd up Bobby Ryan. So check out this moment when the puck went to the bench.
Oh. That's a first for me. There's going to be a meme for sure.
And a meme there was. Bobby Ryan was right. Scary situation, but excuse me. Now my lips aren't working. I'm so cold. Bobby Ryan made light of it. And that turned out to be a really funny video. But this next video is not that funny. It's a little funny, but kind of sad. Alex Biega's son, Carter, was so upset after the Detroit Red Wings lost Monday night. He cried the whole way home. Check it out.
Okay, Carter, look at me. You don't have to stop. You can stop crying now, okay?
I don't wanna.
But it's okay, honey. We lost the game. Teams win and lose.
How sad is that? But how cute is it to see how passionate he is about his dad's team? I mean, like, I remember being there as a kid, you know, just so upset that your team lost. But imagine being your dad's team. Like, Daniela, imagine if your dad played for the Detroit Lions. Come on.
More, but I think it would hurt worse if it was the Red Wings.
Right? But that's all I have from the social media side of things. Guys, make sure you're sending in your questions. We'll answer them later on in the show for Let's Socialize.
Thank you, Carly. As she said, that does it for today's Catching Up with Carly, presented by Meyer. As I mentioned earlier, we've still got a huge show planned for you guys. Dan Dickerson's going to join us to talk some more Tigers baseball. Kevin Allen joining us to talk Red Wings hockey. And John Morosi is going to join Art for the headliner. Right now, we're going to get into Bet You Didn't Know, presented by Points Bet Sportsbook. All right, so for today's Bet You Didn't Know, we are going to do a game preview for tonight's Chicago-Detroit matchup. We're going to recap real quick for you what happened on Monday night. The Red Wings dropped an overtime loss to the Chicago Blackhawks, 3-2 in overtime, like Art mentioned earlier in the very last minute of overtime. And Dominic Kubalik was the star of the game for Chicago with 2 games on the night. The Red Wings did pick up goals from Vladislav Nemetsnikov and Christian Djoos. It was a really hard-fought game. After the Wings went down 2-0, they stormed back, they tied it up, and took it to overtime. And as I mentioned in the Big Three, it really was a winnable game for the Red Wings. They have another shot at the Blackhawks tonight with puck drop at 7:30. Carly, one thing we do know is that the Red Wings had a little bit of success on the penalty kill. That's going to have to continue, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. The Chicago Blackhawks are good on the power play, although they haven't scored a power play goal in the past couple of games. This is something Ken Cal and I were talking about earlier on the Morning Skate presented by Little Caesars. But the Red Wings went 3 for 3 on the penalty kill Monday night, and that is something they'll have to continue again, as you said, tonight against Chicago's lethal power play. The Hawks are converting on the power play 32.7% of the time, which has them ranked 3rd in the NHL. It's really impressive. On the other hand, though, the Red Wings went scoreless yet again with the man advantage. Their power play is now converting just 7.6% of the time. So that's 30th in the NHL, something that they'll really need to improve on, and something that Coach Blashill said they've been talking about and trying to figure out what the issue is and trying to fix it.
And Art, the Chicago Blackhawks, we know that they've had help from guys like Alex DeBrincat, Dominic Kubalik, and Patrick Kane. But they've also had help from some guys that people really didn't expect to step up.
The reason why the Chicago Blackhawks are the surprise team in the league right now, and why they're on the cusp of making the playoffs, is because of their rookie class. It's just been outstanding. Granted, we know Pius Suter is a guy who scored a hat trick against the Red Wings when they played them in Chicago. They have 3 rookies in the top 10 in scoring in the NHL, with Pius and Philip Kucherov being in the top 5 in points. And if you look at it, and then defenseman Nicholas Bodine is 10th in scoring, and he has 5 points in 9 games. And and I have to point out, if Josh Norris's name seems familiar, he's from Michigan. He was a high draft pick for San Jose. Was in the Erik Karlsson deal. to Ottawa, and of course played at the University of Michigan. So Josh Norris, good to see him up there as well. But getting back to Bet You Didn't Know, the fact is that they have guys up front that are playing very, very well and scoring points in Kucherov. And I always want to say Puce Juice for some reason, but Puce Suter. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Christian could change his first name. I don't know. It sounds kind of cool. But Puce Suter. So they're fine up there. But where I think the rubber meets the road in Chicago in their rookie success, in the game against the Red Wings, they had 3 rookie defensemen play. Three on the back end. You only play 6. I mean, Nicholas Bodine, as we said, Ian Mitchell, Lucas Carlson, they all played at least 15 minutes. Bodine had a goal. He was a +2. He played 19 minutes. I mean, to have 3 rookie defensemen in your top 6 play is outstanding. And although Subban played the last game, Kevin Larkinen, the Finnish goaltender, he's 6-2-3. His goals against is 2.49, and his save percentage is .925. Remember when the Red Wings went into Chicago at the beginning of the season? They did not have a goaltender. They were giving up 5 goals a game. Since the beginning of the year, I think since that time, and then when the Red Wings came in and Lankinen played well, I think he shut Detroit out, if I remember correctly. He has been great. He has been the difference. So if you want to look at Chicago, certainly Patrick Kane is Patrick Kane. Alex DeBrincat is back. And Duncan Keith must be good friends with Ponce de Leon because he's found the fountain of youth. I mean, at 37, 38 years old. I mean, that's all coming together. But it's this rookie class, this collection of rookies. And I just named off 6 guys that are rookies on Chicago, and all of them have contributed. Up front, on the blue line, and in net, that's why the Chicago Blackhawks, shall I say it, have a really good chance at making the playoffs this year, being one of the top 4 teams in the Central Division. And I don't think anybody in their right mind when this season began thought that Chicago was anywhere near a playoff caliber team. Well, you can thank, as I said, some of their veteran players certainly, but you've got to really look towards that rookie class, which has been thus far outstanding.
The Red Wings did a good job of keeping the Blackhawks contained on Monday night, so hopefully they can do that again on tonight and come out with a win instead of the overtime loss. So that puck drop again is 7:30 p.m. tonight. Make sure you're tuning into the game and Hockeytown Home Ice via the Home Turf app. Myself, Art, and Carly are on there giving you, of course, your intermission breaks, your pregame breakdown of the game, and it's a lot of fun. There's some stats during the game, so while play's going on, you'll get live stats, you'll get around the league scores, and you'll get all of the content that the Red Wings are playing on the video board inside Little Caesars Arena. So again, the 3 of us are normally active in the chat on there, so if you're watching, make sure that you chat with us as well. And that does it for today's Bet You Didn't Know. Are you ready to make it rain? 30 days, 30 games, $3 million in free bets given away to PointsBet customers by Paige Sporanic. Download the PointsBet app to find out more. And Wings fans, starting this week, you have an opportunity to secure your spot as a Red Wings season ticket member, better known as Wing Wheel Nation. By placing a deposit as low as $50, you'll be on our priority list for selecting your seats this summer. The first 100 accounts to place a deposit will receive complimentary tickets to a Red Wings home game this season in a safe, socially distanced manner. For more information, go to DetroitRedWings.com/WingWheelNation. And now it's time for Brush Street Beat, presented by our friends at McLaren Healthcare. Today's guest is Dan Dickerson, your Detroit Tigers radio play-by-play announcer. And he's not in Florida yet, as we know the pitchers and catchers for the Tigers are, but he'll be down there next week. Dan, are you getting amped up? Are you excited for spring training?
I absolutely am. I actually want to do today's show out on the back porch just for Art. Just want to do one more show outside, but I couldn't do it. 8 below when I got up this morning. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to going to Florida.
That's awesome. I think I wish I was going with you, honestly, Dan. It'll be a lot of fun down there. We heard from Al Avila yesterday, who did sort of confirm what everybody was expecting, that the pitching rotation will be at least 6 pitchers. That was one of our biggest takeaways. What was your biggest takeaway from what Al Avila said? pre-spring training.
I thought it was interesting, some of the things he said about, they're still probably looking for another starting pitcher. And I think, we've talked about that on the show, that seemed like a likelihood because arms and innings are going to be at such a premium this year. And there are some arms out there, I still think, who could help this team. The other thing I thought was interesting is how he reviewed each of their free agents and targeted certain guys. You realize a lot of work went into getting Renato Nunez. Very much an under the radar. It's a minor league invite, but this guy, if he's not in this lineup on a regular basis, I'll be shocked. And that's a big power threat. But you realize they targeted these guys for a reason. Even though these weren't big signings that grabbed headlines, I think what they did very much was, this is a bottom five offense. You had to build with power. You had to have guys who could draw a walk. You had to have some left-handed power. And I think they've done all of those things. And I think it's important to think for Tiger fans, okay, these aren't the biggest names. 4 of the 5 hitters they have signed have all had above average production either last year or in recent years. They're going to add to this offense. But the other thing to remember, this is a staff that believes, and A.J. Hinch put it together with a belief that they are going to make these guys better, that they have targeted guys who have either shown an ability like Robbie Grossman to increase his power at age 31. They believe that change is real. Or a guy like Mazzara, who's still 26, who they believe has untapped power potential that they can probably get out of him. So I think that was interesting to hear. These are specific guys. These were just guys they settled for. These were guys they really went after. And in some cases, it took a long time to get them. But I really liked hearing the background of each one because this staff is going to make these guys better.
Double D, with Nunez, what I like about him, I mean, you think he has to play first base, but in 203 games with Baltimore, he hit 43 home runs. Now, everybody says, well, Camden Yards is a bandbox. He actually hit more home runs on the road than he did at home. So, I mean, I think that's a wonderful pickup. But the one that intrigues me, and they all do, I mean, the Tigers made like 7 really impact moves, I think, bringing players in, and plus a couple of other guys they signed to minor league contracts like Ian Kroll, Derek Holland, Erasmus Ramirez. I'm not even talking about those dudes, but players, I guess I should say. Let's respect them, Art. But the guy that I really like is Nomar Mazzara, and I look at him at 25, and maybe I'm kind of pushing the envelope here a little bit, but I think he's low risk, high reward. Could he turn out to be like J.D. Martinez was for the Tigers?
I don't think quite that upside, but I do think you bring up a good point. He's still younger, as some have pointed out, than a couple of guys that you think of as youngsters on this roster, like Reyes and Stewart. And because he's been in the league since he was 21 years old, he has hit some of the longest home runs at that ballpark in Arlington. He has monster power. He had none of that last year with Chicago, but the track record says, he grades out overall because of his home ballpark as a slightly below average hitter. But when you're 25, you've got a track record in the minor leagues of really pretty good plate discipline. The ability to draw a walk is important, and he has shown that in the minor leagues, early stages of his major league career, not as much in recent years. That ability is in there, and I think Scott Coolball is going to be working, restore that discipline, making sure they're going to have a plan of attack where he can attack the pitches that he can do damage on and learn to lay off, get back to that habit of being able to lay off pitches and not chase as much. But it's monster power from the left side. And, it's one of those things where you're kind of like, he's never really had that big year, but you realize he's still young and it's in there. And it'll be interesting to see what they get out of him. They need left-handed power, and that's the thing. They address the lack of power with most of these moves. If you believe in the power with Grossman, but Mazzara has power, Renato has power, Scope has power. This team needed power, especially from the left side. They've got it from both sides now, but that's a huge difference from recent years. When you go into the late innings and you've got guys who don't draw walks, they strike out a lot and they don't hit with power, you're not really feeling the comeback there. Should feel different.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well. Yeah, well, we've been watching the Red Wings power play, so we know about power outages. Trust me.
Wow. All right there, Art. Dan, Alavila talked a lot about pitching, as we mentioned, and he did say that he thinks Matt Manning could make his MLB debut this season. I have to ask you, I don't think he's going to make the roster right out of spring training, but how early do you think the Tigers could make a move like that?
It's a great question. It's going to be on everybody's mind. The thing that I keep going back to is A.J. Hinch said, as they try to manage innings, and I think Mize Manning and Skubal are probably all going to be in that, and it's going to be, believe me, a player-by-player basis in that 100 to 120 inning range. But he said he wants to make it very clear to those guys, you come out of the gate like you're ready to go. In other words, we're not holding anything in reserve so we can get those innings up. You just come out, give us all you got. We'll manage your innings, but they want to develop these guys as 6 and 7 inning guys. I don't think you want too many of those innings for Matt Manning to be at Toledo. I do think they want him to get some starts there. I do think I'm picturing 5, 6, 7 starts. And if it's as dominant as most people think they will be, because he's done nothing but dominate in the minor leagues. Again, the health is a big deal because he had that forearm issue at the end of last year that shut him down at the alternate training site. But I don't picture it being 10, 12, 13 starts. I picture it more in that 6, 7 start range. If he's dominating, that means, maybe a mid-May call-up. I think that's really quite possible. I really do.
That's a great point, Double D. I mean, that really is, because everybody's arm was not stretched out last year collectively. Why have him pitch in Toledo unless he's not effective? Why not see what he can do in Detroit? Yeah, I mean, I think that makes perfect sense. Now, I'm fascinated to see how A.J. Hinch and this coaching staff integrates itself to this Tiger team. I think that's going to be a fascinating dynamic this spring training. I think it's going to be cool. But, what we just kind of threw aside, and we've talked about it because we just assumed maybe it was a foregone conclusion, is Jonathan Scope's back, and it seems like he's ready to play every position but pitch. I mean, obviously a very, very good move by the Tigers to bring Jonathan Scope back.
Yeah, I really thought he might sign. I mean, I think that's probably what they were waiting on. Would he sign with a contender? Would he get a multiple-year deal? I'm sure that's what he was hoping for. Why wouldn't you? And when it didn't materialize, I think he was, very comfortable with the idea of coming back to Detroit. I think he really liked it here. I mean, this is a guy who hit 2 home runs into the center field shrubbery at Comerica Park. That's a blast that you see just a few times a year. He hit 2 of those. It's a power threat that certainly changes the way an opposing pitcher is going to navigate through this lineup, just him alone, and then adding the other bats around him. I just think it's a different feel to this lineup. And if Miguel Cabrera can take some of that production from September and apply it to 2021 over a longer period of time, then you really got a dynamic offense in the making. Again, this is a bottom 5 offense for the last couple of years. Power numbers have been terrible. It's definitely going to have a different look, but you can get to the middle of the pack with the pitching I think that's coming, and it's going to be the heart of this rotation for years to come. And Mize Manning and Skubal, Spencer Turnbull I would include in that group with Matt Boyd. Now you've got the makings of a team that can be competitive day in and day out.
Dan, one last question for you. Something I'm curious about is the dynamic that we're going to see at the catching position, where you have Jake Rogers and now Wilson Ramos, who the Tigers signed to a deal for this season. What do you think will be what we're looking for in spring training, I guess? Is Wilson Ramos already that definitive number 1 guy, or are we going to see some competition between the two?
Oh, I think there's competition. No, Ramos is the number 1 guy. I don't think there's any question about that. And, he grades out below average defensively, but I'll make the point that I made earlier on this show that A.J. Hinch is not going to agree to, and he had a hand in the, who they signed as their primary catcher, in a guy who can't handle a staff and it can navigate a game and apply a game plan and change a game plan in game. All the things that oftentimes don't get measured. He's not going to have that guy on his team because he thinks that's the most important part of being a catcher. The Tigers badly needed more offensive production at that position. He provides it. He won't be a big power hitter. I think Tiger fans have to realize that. He hits a lot of balls on the ground. And I mean, when you're a ground ball hitter, and he is, I mean, you're not going to hit a ton of home runs. I know he's hit them in the past, but I think you're looking for a guy who's going to hit for average. He's got his walk rate up to average and provide some solid defense enough to handle a staff the way A.J. Hinch wants. Jake Rogers, that allows, to me, the room for Jake Rogers to grow and not be the everyday guy, not have that pressure. We did not see the good defense that Jake Rogers possesses when he was up a couple of years ago because I think he's so focused on his struggles at the plate. He had 7 or 8 pass balls in just a handful of games. That's ridiculous for a guy who is generally thought of as the best defensive guy in minor leagues, defensive prospect. So Jake Rogers gets that room to grow. I think he is the number 2. I'm not discounting anybody else, but I just think he's going to bypass Grayson Greiner because he's got those skills. He's got the upside, and I don't think Grayson Greiner has quite that upside. Grayson Greiner will probably be in the mix. I think he might be that number 2 guy. You're going to have to make a lot of these decisions based on what is now a limited spring training schedule. It's only 29 games instead of the scheduled 34. And, you're going to have to make some judgments based on, okay, it's not the best time to make a judgment, but what else are you going to do? And I think Jake Rogers wins that number 2 job. And I think the Tigers very much believe that he can still be their number 1 guy starting in 2022.
Dan, to wrap this up, Art and I asked you a few questions about what we're interested in heading into spring training. What story or player will you be following the most headed into this spring training?
That's a great question. I think to me, it's all about the arms and how do you get 6, 8, 10 starting pitchers stretched out early to get ready for the regular season. It's going to be an expanded rotation, but then you've got to have guys ready when the inevitable injury strikes. That's going to be tricky on a 29-game schedule. Again, pitchers start with 2 innings, and then it's just bumped up 1 inning at a time if they continue to get outs through spring training. So that's something to watch. How do they balance all that? And you'll get signs for who they think is going to be in that rotation when you see who is starting and when they're starting, and who are going to have some piggyback starts. I'm real interested to see the outfield play because and I think you'll get a feel, even though it's spring training, for how much better this offense will or won't be because of the bats and the added power of Robbie Grossman, for instance, and the Jonathan Scope having that power back in the lineup. So those are the guys. And, you want to see the development of young players. I want to see Willie Castro, maybe more than anything on the position player side, show that he can handle the duties of shortstop on a day-in, day-out basis defensively. We know this kid's going to hit, not 349, but he can hit. And I want to see that he can handle it defensively because if you've got a regular, everyday shortstop who can hit and play at least at an average defensive level, you've got something pretty special. And I think Willie Castro can do it, but I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. And then the other, I want to see if Isaac Paredes can hold down third. How will that all balance out with Paredes, with Jamer Candelario, Nunez over at first? He also plays third. He's actually played more games there. So the position battles are really going to be interesting. But I think we will get a feel for how much better this offense is. And if Willie Castro can hold down short, that's a huge development for this team going forward as they try to build the core of a championship team.
So, Dan, what I took from all of that is that this is going to be a very exciting spring training. All of them are exciting. But this one especially.
It is, but there are some years when you don't have a lot of talent in camp and there are position battles, but it's position battle between 2 guys who aren't that good. It's like, okay, how exciting is this? No, this is exciting. This is exciting because you've got young players who are going to be pushed by other guys and who will be pushing for that starting position. And I think it's going to make for a really entertaining and interesting spring training. The games themselves sometimes aren't that interesting, but what plays out in those games and in the day-to-day is going to be fascinating.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've never been so excited for a spring training, I don't think. And even the game, Dan, I'm excited to watch some spring training baseball. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Some fans in the stands. I get all emotional just thinking about it.
I know. But we will definitely be chatting with you in the weeks to come, Dan. We know you will be in Florida starting next week. So thank you for joining us today, and safe travels on your way down to Lakeland.
All right, I'll talk to you poolside next week.
Oh, wow.
Whatever. All right, that does it. Brush Street Beat. Thanks again to Dan for joining us, and a big thank you to McLaren Healthcare for presenting Brush Street Beat this week and every week right here on The Word on Woodward. You heard Dan say it. That's right. We're going to have some fans down at spring training. Baseball is back, and we are excited to welcome Tigers fans to Publix Field at Joker Marchant Stadium. Spring training single game tickets go on sale tomorrow, February 18th at noon. Fans can purchase tickets online at tigers.com/spring training. We look forward to seeing you at the first game in Lakeland on February 28th when the Tigers take on the Phillies. And we've still got some more Red Wings talk with you, with Kevin Allen. We're going to get into that right now with Downtown Hockeytown, presented by Labatt Blue Light. And today's guest is Kevin Allen, your Hockey Hall of Fame writer. Kevin, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Always a pleasure, and I love following Dan Dickerson. He's got me all pumped up about Tigers baseball.
He does that, man. I swear, every time we talk to him, I'm more excited. It's spring training, and I'm amped up.
Me too. All the competition, and there's so much going on with the Tigers in the off season. It's if I wasn't such a hockey guy, I might start writing about baseball.
Well, the reason that you're here is because you're such a hockey guy, Kevin, and we're just over a quarter of the way through the Red Wings season, and we know that they've had some struggles scoring, especially on the power play, but I want to hear your evaluation of the team so far this season.
Well, I mean, I think they've been more competitive, and I think that was the objective that Steve Yzerman had with this team. Like, it feels like they can win these games, but the goal scoring issue has continued this season, and that's a little perplexing to me because I really felt it was sort of time for the Larkin and Manthas of the world, and Larkin obviously has done it for a couple of seasons, but to see more out of those guys. But a couple of bad things that were bad luck occurred that I think has really kind of set the team back a little bit. Fabre's COVID issue, he had started out strong, and it looked like they were going to have two lines of scoring, and then he went down. I think now he's rounding back into shape, and that's helping as well. And then Bertuzzi's injury as well, taking him out of the lineup for a few games causes some issues and causes everyone to sort of move around. Like, they're not at the position where you can take two important players, and even Zadina was with the COVID as well. And had everyone sort of stayed healthy, I think they'd be in a little better shape than they were before. Not to say that they've matched the hope that we'd had that they would show dramatic progress. They haven't done that for sure.
Kevin, first, I just have to say, let's come clean here. You're writing a novel or something, right? I mean, you look like you're you're hunkered down, and the characters are coming together, and it's going to be the next great American novel. I mean, that I actually like this look. I've known you a long time. I think not only does it look distinguished, but I mean, it looks good.
Well, you know what? I really sort of have embraced the COVID hibernation. And I'll tell you, though, I get my second shot vaccination on Friday. So then 2 weeks from that, in theory, I'm 95% covered. So that could change everything once I'm fully vaccinated. And but really, it has everything to do with the fact I just haven't ventured out. I haven't been to any hockey games, haven't gone out, haven't gone to any movies, haven't gone anywhere, haven't gone to any restaurants. So just hunkered down and watching a lot of hockey, though. It's been an entertaining season, to say the least.
Well, certainly, and I know we really want to focus on the Red Wings, but I have to ask you something. And maybe isn't there, and you're probably the man to write it, aren't the Las Vegas Golden Knights already worthy of a book? I mean, what they've done is just, I can't believe how good they are. I mean, they're an expansion team? You got to be kidding me.
Well, and talk about a team. I just talked about how things had gone wrong for the Red Wings, and things have gone right for the Vegas Golden Knights. And even when it looks like they've gone wrong, I mean, in the off season, they made what a lot of people thought were a few mistakes in the handling of the Marc-Andre Fleury goaltending situation. They've ended up with $14 million in goalies. They didn't move Marc-Andre Fleury. Well, that's turned out fine because Robin Lehner didn't perform as well as they'd expected, and then he became injured, and Flory has taken the reins again, and looked like he always had and done the job there. And of course, they signed Pierangelo in the off season as defenseman, and every team in the league would have loved to have had him, and that's made an impact as well. And they're off to a great start. And if you're listing the premium teams in this league, right now you're going Colorado, Tampa, Vegas, Carolina. And there's Vegas right there. They're the betting capital of the world, and a lot of bettors have laid down money that they're going to win their first cup this season. And it's certainly a possibility. There are other teams that'll have a say in that. But in a short period of time, Vegas is into the final in their first season, and now I think they've got another great chance of winning the cup.
It has been incredible, the things that they've done, and it makes me very curious to see what happens with the expansion draft for Seattle. So that will be really interesting.
Yeah, I actually feel sorry for the Kraken. I love saying that, by the way. I feel sorry for the Kraken because, how do you follow Vegas? Even though the same rules are going to apply in terms of what you can protect, it's still not going to be the same. Because the general managers went to school last time, and I think most of them have said publicly, or at least said privately, I'm not going down that path like I went last time when I gave them 3 players so they wouldn't take one specific player. I'm just going to say, take whoever you want. I'll take my lumps and move on, because that's what ended up happening. A lot of teams lost more than they should have because, they fell in love with one player and they paid Vegas off, so to speak, not to take that player, and it ended up costing them more. So I think teams are going to be less willing to part with prospects to prevent the Kraken from taking one specific player. I think everyone's just going to take their lumps. And because of that, I'm not so sure that the Kraken will start out with as much talent as the Vegas Golden Knights did.
Kevin, getting back to the Red Wings, the power play is 30th in the league. They're converting at like a 7% rate, which is astounding. We've seen this. I mean, it kind of ebbs and flows, and, feast or famine. You can use every cliche. I love the Larry Murphy term. Everybody seems to be squeezing the sap out of their sticks right now. Everyone's playing tight. How do you correct a power play that has struggled for what seems like an eternity?
Well, I think there's, some luck that's involved in the power play. I mean, otherwise it's difficult to explain why a team, for example, the Vancouver Canucks were 4th in power play percentage a season ago, and they're 21st this season with essentially the same personnel. So there is some luck about what shots get through and how deflections go. But I also think it's a confidence issue. I think that now that they've been so poor for so long that they expect it not to go well. And I do think that they have to, work on their entries. That's been an issue. Puck control within the zone has been an issue. But I think a big issue for me as watching their power play is their inability to get the puck to the net. Like, there's no statistic for this, at least not that I'm aware of, but it feels like they get more shots blocked from the point than any team in the league. And I almost feel like it's time to put a call in to our good friend Nick Lidstrom in Sweden and said, Nick, can you come over for about 3 weeks and give us a tutorial on how to get shots to the net? Because they just have an inability to do that. And I think this would be very important. It would make sense to me to do that, to bring in and just have guys working on, little deeks and stuff, or moving into the lanes differently. Because if you're not getting the puck to the net, you have no chance for deflections. There's going to be no Holmstrom-like moment when it hits him and just goes in the net off various parts of his body. And boy, they have a lot of shots getting blocked. Hronek gets a lot blocked. Dylan Larkin gets a lot blocked. And I think that's one of the key elements. And I'm sure it's something they talk about. But, they've got to do a better job in getting pucks to the net.
So we talk about the Red Wings' lack of scoring, but they have shown some strength on the defensive side of the ice. So what have you liked about their defensive game? As you mentioned earlier, they're more competitive. These games are close games. They're losing close games.
Yeah. Well, the goaltending has helped. Like Grice has really been an important acquisition. The fact, even though he hasn't been able to win, it really hasn't been his fault. His save percentage has been around the league average, and that's pretty good considering that he, plays for a team that doesn't score many goals and is always pressing. I think that has helped. But I really like the offseason acquisitions. Stahl has really been a nice addition, and in saying that, they'll trade him away and get something for him at the trade deadline because he's not a guy for the future, but he's been effective as a guy that is just more mindful of the defensive side than the offensive side, even though he's had a couple of goals. But Stetcher has been a nice addition as well, and I think his skating ability fits in well with the type of kind of up-tempo go team that Steve Yzerman is trying to build. And Merrill is a seasoned guy who offers offensive and defensive play. So I've liked all the guys. Juice I think was a guy that was an afterthought. He was available, and they're well aware that he played all those games for the Capitals when they won the Cup, so he's experienced as well. So they've got guys now that have been around the block, and there's no panic in this group, and I think that's the key element. And this is the kind of defense like if you were close to being ready offensively, it would be nice to have a defense like this. But I suspect that we'll see some of those guys move as we get to the trade deadline because. Yzerman, I'm sure, will turn them into assets.
I think everyone's expecting the same thing, Kevin. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And it's always great chatting with you. We hope the Red Wings can turn things around a little bit here as the season moves forward.
Always a pleasure to be with you guys.
Thanks again, Kevin. And of course, a big thank you to Labatt Blue Light for presenting Downtown Hockeytown. Labatt Blue Light, refreshing Canadian Pilsner. Visit your local retailer when safe to pick up some Labatt Blue Light. Red Wings fans, join the Red Wings in celebrating Black History Month with the purchase of a limited edition t-shirt. Each shirt costs $30 with proceeds supporting local youth programming through the Detroit branch NAACP and the Detroit Red Wings Foundation. To learn more and to purchase the shirt, visit DetroitRedWings.com/equality. And now we're going to get back to a little bit of baseball and spring training when Art was joined by John Morosi for today's headliner.
Thank you, Daniela. It is time for the headliner presented by Miller Lite. Let's bring him in. MLB Network baseball reporter. Well, of course, it's the MLB. John Paul Morosi. I call him JP. I'm going to call him John Paul. I'll call him John. I call him everything because this guy and I go back a long way. It's always great to have him on the headliner. JP, how are you, buddy?
Art, my friend, always love catching up, and you can call me a Michigander, proud Michigander. That's the number one title that I attach myself to the most, but always great to catch up with you, and we've had some great pond hockey weather here of late in our great state. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I want to ask you because I know you're based here in Michigan, but is there any kind of national buzz about the Tigers this year? Are people saying, wow, Detroit did a lot of good things in the offseason, they're up and coming, or is that just us here in Michigan that are maybe wishful thinking on our part?
Well, Art, a couple of things here. Number one, to me, the White Sox are probably the best roster right now in the American League. I really believe that 1 through 26. And, of course, you've got Tony La Russa, and they were in the playoffs last year. And, of course, the Twins won the division. The Indians, they made the Lindor trade. So I think all three of those teams have been talked about more. However, the general industry consensus, I can tell you, Art, is that the Tigers are getting better, that we, of course, will look to see some more improvement from the likes of Mize and Skubal, and hopefully Manning arrives in the majors this year, and there's a really good relationship with those young pitchers and new pitching coach Chris Fetter, who, of course, we know well from U of M. And then I think the Tigers as well, they made some very good shorter-term moves. I think Grossman, good signing. Mazzara, good signing. You look at other moves they made. I think Urena has a chance to make an impact there. I think behind the plate, Ramos. These are all subtle moves bringing scope back. I think they're all really, really good moves. They're not going to get on the same wavelength in terms of a celebration of a move like a Liam Hendricks going to the White Sox or or some other moves made in the American League. But these were all individually good, solid moves with some good pros. I'm curious to see what Ureña can do in the rotation and see what Boyd can do bouncing back. I'm not sure that the overall industry perception is this is a playoff team in 2021, but certainly, Art, I would say this. They've got a very strong chance to be a playoff contender come 2022.
Well, yeah, what I like about that, if the young arms come through, you mentioned some, Skubal, Mize, Manning, Alex Faedo can come back from surgery. Joey Wentz seems to be, going up the food chain. I mean, they seem to have a wealth of young arms. Are we really looking at when they, quote unquote, they'll arrive? And I know they're going to do some offseason moves. Is that when Skubal and Green make that next step? Is that kind of an indication to Tiger fans that that this team is ready to make their move?
Yeah, that's a great question, Art. To me, I will say the line of demarcation is if we see Riley Green, whether it's this year or next year, if he comes up at a time, whether it's May of 2022 or April of 2022, whatever that looks like, when he is up and playing every day, and whether he reaches the majors first or Torkelson does, I suppose that's an open question. The drivers of this group are going to be the position players. And we've talked before on this show about the need for the Tigers to find a way to really get a group of position players together and develop a culture. I think by all accounts, Green and Torkelson will do that. And I think once we see those players, or at least one of them, Green or Torkelson in the major leagues and playing every single day, that is when I think it's fair to start the clock on this team and say, okay, this is now the team or starting to become the team that we're expecting. It's time for them to win. I think that time is not too far off. And I think especially if you see Green or Torkelson on this roster and they're above 500 and they're playing well, then I think you could start queuing up some of the soundtracks from 2006 and say that not that they're going to the World Series, but that a new generation of baseball in Detroit has been reborn.
Well, if that were to happen, I'd revive the old 1968 song, "We're All Behind Our Baseball Team. Go Get 'Em Tigers," I mean, that would be wonderful. I want to ask you about this real quickly because there's so many topics I really want to get to. But it appears that Torkelson thinks he's going to play third. But when I look at the Tigers, and with all due respect to Miguel Cabrera, who still thinks he can play first base probably every single day, there seems to be a huge gap at first base for them. Torkelson was a first baseman. I know he's played third. Can you look into the future? Where do you think he ends up?
Well, it's a great question, Art. And I think that Torkelson's play will tell us the answer. There's no question that you have the most value as a middle of the order bat if you can play third, because then that allows you to be more creative and sign a free agent. Just hypothetically speaking, I'm not going to say this is going to happen, but let's say that you look to the future and Candelario maybe plays a different spot. That allows you to sign a first baseman. I'm not saying this first baseman, but let's say an Anthony Rizzo is available. Okay, well, if you put Rizzo at first and Torkelson at third and Candelario can move somewhere else, then you're just able to add that many more bats. So I think you do the best you can to allow your player to present as much value as possible. This spring training is about finding out, can Paredes play second base? Where does Candelario best fit, first or third? How does Torkelson look at third base? Can Castro play shortstop every day? These are all questions that I think are really important for the Tigers. And this spring is about what A.J. Hinch sees with this group and where he thinks they can play, what Chip Hale on the coaching staff looks and sees, what Ramon Santiago looks and sees of this group. I think those are the key things that we have to get answers from the Tigers this year. And then one of the great things about Jonathan Schoop is he's a great teammate and he'll move around. If it ends up being that he has to play first because they want Candelario at third, or if they want Paredes at first or second, whatever that ends up being, Schoop can move around because he's a veteran player and has that way about him. And I really think that Jonathan Schoop's selflessness and flexibility are really key storylines about this spring training coming up for the Detroit Tigers.
When I heard if the Tigers are on the fast track and they look at it, A.J. Hinch and the coaching staff that he's put together is pretty impressive. But if they really, truly are on the fast track and surprise people, the difference maker will be Chris Fetter as the pitching coach. Is that fair?
Yes, it is, because this team will only go as far as the rotation takes them. If Matthew Boyd's numbers look like they did in 2020, I have a hard time imagining this team competing and contending this season. Same thing is true when you think about Mize. Same thing is true with Skubal. There has to be a real development of this group, and it's going to have to come from within. I think that's one of the things, Art, that I think is fun about following this team right now, is that we now at least know most of the names. They may add a few players here and there in free agency when they're really ready to win. But I think in general, this is the group. These are the guys, and it's a matter of, are they good enough or not? And I think we're about to find out just their aptitude. I think that word aptitude is so important in the game right now. The ability to adjust, improve, change, innovate. And I think Chris Fetter is someone who can speak the language of someone who pitched in the minor leagues and has been around baseball a long time, but also has a truly great grasp of analytics and how to reach a 20-year-old pitcher, a 21-year-old pitcher, as he did for so many years in Ann Arbor, and make those players better. I think he's going to be such a key member of the organization. It would not surprise me, Art, if when we go back and for the next several years to come, if the decision and the way that everything played out, A.J. Hinch and Chris Fetter going to Detroit instead of the White Sox might end up being one of the defining storylines of this division for the next 5 to 10 years.
My one final question to you is I think maybe the best news, whether you're just a Tiger fan or a baseball fan in general, it seems like we're on track to start everything on time, and maybe we will have a full schedule of 162. I mean, I'm hopeful, but then again, I know what we've been through the last year. Where do you stand on that?
Sure, I'm optimistic too, Art. I think we have seen the way that baseball has operated successfully. I think especially towards the end of last season. You look at September, once baseball wrapped its mind around the protocols and really adapted them and adopted some new stricter protocols, September was a very good month. And we've even heard in recent weeks, I know there was a Q&A that Dr. Fauci did with the New York Times about baseball in general, saying that it helps to be outside, that he continues to believe, based on the science, that outdoor sports are easier to operate in the summertime and outdoors than it would be indoors in the winter. So I think from that standpoint, Art, as much as we looked at last summer's schedule and said, wow, the calendar is not so much on our side starting in July and then wanting to rush to get things done before the fall and the second spike, which ended up proving to be true. In this case, I think we can objectively say, when you consider better weather coming and the vaccine rolling out, that the calendar is now on our side. Time is on our side, that things will gradually get easier to manage as the months go. And if spring training more or less goes well, and again, we realize it's not going to be a case where there's zero positive tests. I mean, that's a reality of living right now. But I think that if you can manage those situations and be mostly on time in spring training, I think with each day, the optimism is going to grow as more and more vaccines are distributed. And I think that as much as last year was kind of a race against the clock, now we can say, listen, time is on our side. We'll be outside in the summertime when the vaccine's distributed. It makes me very optimistic for what 2021 is going to look like around Major League Baseball.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the future looks bright for the Tigers and for the for this upcoming season for Major League Baseball. John Palmarosi, MLB Network reporter. It's always great to catch up with you. Thank you. We're going to have you on, John. I had all kinds of things to ask you. Two pages worth, and we just ran out of time. But I'll talk to you very, very soon. Hopefully everything's well. I know your wife's a doctor doing tremendous work out there in Ann Arbor. Thanks for joining us on The Headliner. Take care, John.
Art, thanks so much for the well wishes. We appreciate it very much. And again, that's my fault for being long-winded as usual. I'll try to be a little more economical next time around. But look forward to our next visit, whether it's baseball, hockey, anything at all, my friend. Always love catching up, and look forward to the next time.
Well, I'm right back at you. I promise. Maybe next time you're on, regardless of what we're going to talk about, I'll ask you a hockey question first. Okay? We'll get
Sounds great, Art. It's a deal.
Get that out of the way. Thanks again, John. We'll talk to you. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, Art. Thank you.
That'll do it for this edition of the Headliner, presented by Miller Lite. It is the original light beer. It tastes delicious. It's only 96 calories, and it's available for delivery. Daniela, back to you.
Thank you, Art. And another huge thank you to John Morosi for joining us. It's always great to hear from him. Right now, we're going to get into Let's Socialize, presented by AAA. And of course, we're going to bring in Carly Johnston for this one, who has been all over the social media channels.
Did you want to do something wrong, Daniela?
I did. You know what? I'm just going to do it. And they're going to probably be upset with me. I'm going to say, you guys need to check out The Road to Detroit, because we're all so amped up about spring training. John Morosi did such a good job. It's a 30-minute special put together by the Tigers in-house production team, featuring players include Spencer Torkelson, Casey Mize, Riley Green, and many, many others. Re-airs are playing now on FSD, and you can catch the player-specific bios on the Tigers YouTube channel and DetroitTigers.com. I'm sorry, I got so amped up for Let's Socialize and our fan questions. And to be honest with you, I was laughing inside at the fact that John Morosi apologized to Art for being long-winded.
I know.
You love to see it, don't you? Well, I know we're all very excited for spring training, and with that, I'm going to transition easily into my first question. So since we just heard a lot from Art, Daniela, I'm going to get your thoughts first and then head on over to Art. We'll have 2 questions for today. So Daniela, you up first. Who are you most excited to see at spring training?
Ooh, this is such a tough question, because I'm obviously excited to see the guys that we just talked about with The Road to Detroit and Casey Mize, Spencer Torkelson, Riley Green. But Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green are probably not going to be in Detroit, definitely not going to be in Detroit this year. So I won't say one of them. And Al Avila has made me really excited to see Matt Manning and follow what he does at spring training, because he said yesterday in his press conference that Matt Manning will probably make his MLB debut at some point this season. And Dan Dickerson got me even more excited, thinking they'll probably give him 6 to 7 games in Toledo before calling him up. That's not a long time. So he said he's thinking mid-May. And I'm just going to listen to Dan Dickerson, because everything he says is right. And I think that's just a really exciting thing for the Tigers. Their young pitchers are the best part of their prospect pool. We know they had top 5 prospects in the top 25. So it's awesome. I think Matt Manning is going to be really exciting to see. And I think if he does find his way to Detroit and he gets a chance at the rotation, then he's definitely going to make the impact that we all expect him to make.
I couldn't agree more. I'm sorry, nothing. So that's very true. We do have a lot of great pitcher prospects. That's a tongue twister to say. All right, how about you?
Well, certainly I really want to look at the pitching. I want to look at the dynamic, as I said earlier, of how the management team integrates itself into the to the young Tigers, or probably better yet, the way the team integrates itself to the management staff, because they're not going anywhere. I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic. But I'm really, and I brought him up to Double D, I'm really interested to see how Nomar Mazara performs, because he's on his 3rd team, I believe now. And, he's only 25. He's really high-end draft pick. Everybody had really high expectations for him. And I sometimes think, and we've seen this so many times in professional sports, regardless of sport, when a player has really high expectations, there's a couple of Pistons that fall into that category as we speak. I can go back to Danny Cleary, who was a really high draft choice. When he got to Detroit, he found his way. I'd like to see maybe Mazara could be one of those guys that could really turn it around and maybe live up to his expectations. So that's who I would say at this point. Although, again, Skubal, Mize, Manning, those guys I'm really eager to see as well, and the management staff.
Love it. Love it. I know you said it earlier. You're really excited to see how everything will be managed. I know our skipper is different this year. It's not Ron Gardenhire, but definitely exciting things to come for the Tigers. And then our second question is about the Detroit Red Wings. I know this is someone that we've all been talking about since training camp. We had a really good training camp, but a fan wanted to know, what are your Brome thoughts? So Daniela, we'll head to you first and then go to Art.
Matthias Brome is obviously a very hard worker, and there's clearly something that the coaches and the rest of the staff like about him. And he works hard every single shift. He's had some time playing with Dylan Larkin. He's had some time playing with Philip Zadina. He's played with some of the Red Wings' best players. And it's so tough because he hasn't found the score sheet yet. And Coach Blashill always describes it this way. When he was playing overseas in Sweden, he said that Matthias Brome did this over there. He didn't score. He had a hard time getting going, but then once he did, they came in bunches. So hopefully he can get one and get the monkey off the back, so to speak, and then end up netting a few and finding the score sheet more. But like I said, he works really hard. He's on every shift. He's putting himself in the position to score. We've seen him have so many golden opportunities. It's just not going his way right now. So my thought is that he's solid in the lineup. He's somebody that you can count on to work hard, and that eventually once he does score, they're going to come in bunches.
Absolutely. I know it doesn't show on the stats, and he's been a little snake bitten, but Art, what do you see about his gameplay out on the ice?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think since the moment we saw him when training camp began, he's a little bit older, so he's physically able to take the rigors of the NHL. I mean, he has a man's body. I think, what is he, 26 years old, so he's a full-grown man. But I think it's his energy level, his compete level, and he plays both ends of the ice. You know, he's not afraid to, go to the net. He's not afraid to go in the corners and dig out the puck. And I think it's that energy and that willingness to do whatever it takes for the team to win. He's a two-way player, as I said, a complete player. And I think that has won the admiration of his teammates and the respect of the coaching staff. That's why he's on the top line with Dylan Larkin and Philip Zadina at this point, if the line holds true, if that's how it's going to be tonight against Chicago. And I think, and I don't want you to think that this is a stretch on my part, because it's really not. He kind of brings some of the aspects, and he has kind of the aspect to his game that Tyler Bertuzzi has. As far as going to the dirty areas, as far as being a physical player, he's not afraid to mix it up. He has really good speed, might be a little bit better skater than Tyler. No offense, Tyler. But with that saying, it kind of almost makes sense, because let's be honest, Larkin's really missing Bertuzzi on his line. I think that's pretty apparent. I mean, Dylan's among the league leader in shots, believe it or not. I mean, in the entire NHL, things aren't going his way, but he's kind of missing something. To bring a player like Brome, put him on that line who has some of the same traits that Tyler has as a player. I'm not saying he's Tyler Bertuzzi. I think that's kind of the jumpstart Dylan a little bit too. And then you've got Zadina, who I think has arrived. I think he's a great all-around player now. He understands the game. He's not putting the puck in the net. He's not on the score sheet. But what's going on with Zadina is that he's not letting his frustration level affect his game on the ice. He's still playing that 200-foot game. That's very, very important. But getting back to Brome, I like Brome's game, as Daniela said. I do think that I think that they're keeping their fingers crossed. What he did in the Swedish Hockey League, where he started off slowly, but once he starts scoring, it comes in bunches. Because of what they've seen so far, I think the Red Wings think that there's a chance that could happen at the NHL level too. So at this point, he's doing everything but scoring, and they like everything he's doing, but certainly everybody wishes he would score.
Absolutely. I know he's a skillful player, but he's a little snake bitten right now. I know Vladislav Nemesnikov was talking about him yesterday after practice and said, he's a really good player, but right now he just needs to net one so that can open up the ice for him, give him some confidence, and then hopefully they'll keep coming. So fingers crossed, maybe that'll happen tonight. Speaking of tonight, while you're watching the game on NBCSN, make sure you're tuning into Hockeytown Home Ice. You'll see the three of us alongside Jason Woolley, who will be here tonight, and we will all be chatting with you guys on Hockeytown Home Ice, including Jason Woolley, so don't miss out on that opportunity. Guys, we'll have to keep it entertaining for them.
We always do. Are we ever not entertaining?
No, I don't think there's a single
fans watching. Don't answer that. Don't answer that.
We are show people. We are definitely show people.
That we are. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Daniela because I'm freezing.
Go warm up, Carly.
Thank you, Carly, for sharing that.
What are you into this?
A big thank you to AAA for presenting Let's Socialize. AAA says thank you with free roadside assistance for first responders and healthcare workers fighting to defeat COVID-19. You protect us by going to work every day. Let AAA protect you on the way there and back. And that brings us to the end of another edition of The Word on Woodward, presented by Rehmann. Empower your purpose with Rehmann. Make sure you're tuning in every Wednesday at noon, wherever you're watching. Turn on your live notifications and like and subscribe. That way you don't miss a single second of The Word on Woodward. But if you do, you're in luck. We post all of our interviews to our Word on Woodward YouTube channel, or you can listen to the show as a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. The Wings taking on the Blackhawks tonight at 7:30 p.m. Check out Hockeytown Home Ice, as we just talked about. It'll be myself, Carly, and Art alongside Jason Woolley. We'll be in the chat with you. It's really fun. I promise we actually are entertaining, no matter how much we joke about it. And we'll make sure we talk about all of this week's news and much more next week on The Word on Woodward. Again, that will be Wednesday at noon. So we'll see you guys then.